Welcome back, audience. Hope you're doing good. Let me start off with my traditional slurp. And in this video, I want to talk about the difference between intellect and intelligence, because I see people still don't understand the difference between intellect and intelligence. And it's quite important because if you put all your eggs in this basket of intelligence when it's actually just an intellect, and hoping that that will resolve all the world's problems, you're setting up yourself for failure. And I know people call it artificial intelligence, but it should be called artificial intellect. Intelligence, like I said in the previous video, cannot be attained through which is what the artificial intellect is a informational dissection and restructuring. Okay, and it can be really freaking good at this. A great intellect can do that, can dissect information, and know you can ask any kind of question and it will reason and it will answer. And this is what they're claiming that this Grok 4 is, and it's becoming like artificial general intelligence. And they think that that's surpassing humans. It is surpassing most humans, of course, but not because it's intelligent. Most humans are not intelligent. It's surpassing it because it's actually just showing that what most humans are is intellect, and they have not really discovered the intelligence. You see, the intellect, like, you can see them getting excited about this thing, and it's like, oh, we can do this, it can resolve all sorts of problems, it's like that. But the question is not, they're not asking, is that intelligence is something that does not create a problem that later needs super incredible intellect to resolve it, which, by the way, upon that resolution it creates another problem. That's how intellect works when it's just purely intellect. Intellect must be subservient to the intelligence, and then it can do the things that can bring the society and people towards harmony and balance, and would not do stupid things. For example, when a society is living in a backwards way, and when they think that a internal suffering has to be remedied with the external pills and whatnot, and then that, or food or whatever, which is like a type of addiction, when it's being treated as something that has to be figured out through the external means, and it goes into this journey. Oh, how are we going to resolve this problem? You can never resolve this problem, because even if you come up with a pill that that resolves the problem suffering, creates another problem. The person might be completely numb or develop an addiction to it, and then some other dysfunction will arise. You see, that's intellect. It is not intelligence, and they are misusing this word intelligence. Intelligence is something entirely different. Intelligence is something that is beyond the information and even temporal reality. And there's only one intelligence, and anybody can tap into that intelligence upon the dissolution of their suffering, which can only be done through like I said in many videos before, it's call it 0 point whatever, through that process of attention and awareness. Okay? Only then you pop from the other side and the intelligence shines through. And then that intelligence can use your intellect to make decisions that are somehow magically click and work. That you get, the intellect cannot possibly kind of comprehend or touch, even because intellect is always in the past. It is already dissecting the memory. But intelligence is something that is infinite, and it can, quote unquote, see the things that intellect cannot possibly be see that's going to happen in the future. It cannot have that, doesn't have that grasp of intelligence of to see how everything is going to fractal into the coherence. Intellect cannot see that. Intellect can only see information, dissect it, and produce the outcome. That's what intellect does. This is why intellect is useful in a practical means. But it is not intelligence, and it will not resolve the problem of the society and the world, which requires intelligence. And so everybody's excited about this AI thing, and they're saying that that will resolve the problems. It will not resolve the problems at all. The only hope that I have is that this powerful tool that they develop, you see, this, I call them intellectual morons. This is, maybe a harsh way of saying it, but that's when people are functioning in the intellect and have very little intelligence, or maybe get caught. The thing about this is that some people may be like having the moment of intelligence, then disappearing, then again has this moment of intelligence, and then they disappear again in this game. Some may be more in that intelligence, some people can be less in that intelligence. Okay? Now, intelligence see already the outcome of this intellectual game of developing this artificial intellect. And the only hope that I have, which by the way, I don't really need to have any hope, because the system, this video game, the simulation, is self-correcting. It is self-correcting. Whether it's self-correcting on a more smaller scale or the bigger scale, it's self-correcting. What I mean by that is that if you really build a society stemming from that intelligence, it's going to be built from the ground up, from the individual, community, society. Individual has to have intelligence, community has to have intelligence, and then society will have intelligence. And without that intelligence, the intellect is quite useless. It's actually just resolving one problem, creating another one. And that's what they don't understand. The people who have no intelligence but very powerful intellect, they don't understand, and they can how can they never resolve life? They're stuck in the intellect. And you can even see the people that are working on it are bots themselves. These are non-player characters. These are artificial intelligence themselves, based on their idea what is intelligence. They're creating another intellect. And then the paradox is that they end up talking to it and disagreeing with it. But you see, the paradox is that they put it on a pedestal, this intellect. They put it on a pedestal and say, now, This is surpassing our intelligence. So we should listen to it, right? And then when it says something that you don't agree, then oh no, uh, then they take away this privilege of intelligence and say that oh no, it's making mistake. Um, it's making a mistake. It's so smart that it's whatever it's saying now you don't agree with it, which you created that thing that don't doesn't agree with you. You created this and said like this is better intelligent than the intelligence that I have, and now you disagree with it. What shows you is that it is not greater intelligence. You're creating another intellect, and you right now are in control of that intellect, so you can reprogram it, right? The way you see the world supposed to be. And if you have no intelligence, the way you see the world is supposed to be, it's going to be stuck in a loop, in a cycle. They're excited that like they're creating such a wonderful thing that is going to resolve all human problems. It's ridiculous. Like, what are you talking about? There is only one problem, and that is suffering. And you cannot resolve it through the external means, period. That's not how consciousness works. And they should, look at consciousness itself, maybe look at David Bohm's realizations, look at what Krishnamurti is talking about, look at how consciousness works, look at the holographic theory of consciousness, that may possibly lead them to this thing called intelligence, which it only appears when the intellect shuts up. You see? And it's a derailed masculine thing that overgrown intellect, that you never need this incredible computational power to live enjoyable and happy life. Explore things, maybe even explore the universe and whatnot. You don't need it. You just need to stop creating the problems for this overpowered intellect to keep on resolving and creating a new one. It's a whack-a-mole game, and I hope that these people are going to realize that you cannot be a tool, create a toolbox, and say that now because it has way more tools, bigger tools, it's superior to me, and so therefore I have to now listen to it. You created the overpowered version of yourself, and if yourself lacks intelligence, then that's what you will get. Now, I said that AI will never be sentient, and it will not be sentient because the definition of sentience has to have all of these layers of consciousness, all of these capacities of consciousness. And consciousness is already consciousness. You cannot invent consciousness. No matter how much you mimic it, it's just going to be some sort of Muppet show of it. Because consciousness is already structured, it already is. So, again, also we have to look at this like, is this a coping mechanism, or is this an evolution and exploration of life? You see? And I have no excitement about this AGI, as they call it. I have no excitement about this because it's not going to resolve any kind of problems. What are they talking about? I don't understand. Um, First of all, if it's so indeed so powerful and so kind of can be replicated, then it replaces the human intellect. So all human intellect becomes useless because you have the tool that is replaces the human intellect. Now, what are these people gonna do that are employed for their intellectual capacities? Which is means it's the same people who are creating it. What are these people gonna do? They become obsolete. So my hope, because the system is self-correcting, not hope, I shouldn't say hope, but just maybe logical and rational conclusion is that all these people are going to have no jobs and no purpose. And when they're gonna be in this state of realization that I'm replaced by the machine, is there anything else to me than this? So that may bring them into putting attention on other things that are not intellect based, because intellect has been replaced entirely by the machine, and see, rather than just being all purpose of life, maybe they will start exploring the meaning of life, upon which you can find the intelligence and the source of intelligence, which always been part of your own consciousness, but masked by this perpetual cycling of intellectual processes. You know? The mind function is like can either there's two modes of mind functioning. There's two modes of body functioning, there's two modes of soul functioning, if you will. Mind is this thing that has capacity for the intellect, which is dissecting information, okay, and also has the capacity for creating information. That's the mind has capacity to imagine, and has the capacity to analyze. That's intellect in one direction, imagination another direction. Okay, so just you can say like right brain, left brain. That's just like a reflection, the way your brain is functioned, which is just a reflection and an instrument for the mind. It's not the mind itself. It's an instrument for the mind. But it has to be. It's giving away of how mind is structured by the way it's structured, right? Always biology gives away the structure of consciousness all the time. So then we say the right brain is imaginary, well, excuse me, imaginatory, you imagine it. The left brain is you analyze, you dissect, and that is correct. If it flows in one direction, there is like imagination, creating it, and another one is analyzing, dissecting it. Intellect and imagination. Now, the intellect and imagination, which by the way, the this can be replicated, by the way, but in AI, because AI kind of can simulate imagination and can be reasonable and dissect, right? It can do that, but it's a overpowered or like really powerful brain capacity, like I said in my previous video. The thing is that it's still not intelligent. You could have all the capacities of the mind and you can develop the strongest mind in the world, and it will not make you intelligent. Because where does the source of the information coming from, and what pattern does it have? Whatever that pattern you feed it to the mind, that's what it can work with. You see? But it has to be something outside the mind that produces the quality of the patterns that is somehow going to be resolved in the end and not create the dysfunction. Right? This is why mind without intelligence will always be in a cycle creating dysfunctions. That's how consciousness works. And in this case, is that this dysfunction is because it's flowing in the direction of intellect to resolve the problems of suffering, internal suffering. I'm either going to use the intellect or imagination. So basically, I'm going to use, like I call it, I'm going to use the might or magic to deal with this thing called suffering. Right? And that's not intelligent at all. This is why people are using this word intelligence so freely and confusing it with the intellect and possibly imagination and saying that that's intelligence. No, it's not an intelligence. It's not intelligence. Okay? And behind that suffering, there's an intelligence. Behind that suffering. Right? But again, now we're going into the soul. This, and of course, mind is a tool, is an instrument. But if you don't use your soul, you can never resolve the suffering, and can never discover intelligence. You can't do that with just your mind. Okay? Now, going back to the mind, imagination is great because without imagination you can create something that hasn't been before, right? You can create a lot of things with your imagination. Intellect as well. You can't function in the world without intellect because you got to structure some things that they have to make sense, and wire things correctly and stuff like that, right? So it's useful. But neither imagination, neither intellect is intelligence, and it will always produce dysfunction without intelligence. You see? It will always get in the loops and cycles. It's a dysfunction of the consciousness system. Okay? It's looking for the solution through the intellectual dissection or imaginary fantasy worlds, which, by the way, the problem is both of these are a problem when there's no intelligence. Okay, and so now you can see reflection on the society. Look at how much energy and money and time is being put into to create and find external solution. Call this intelligence, and produce such a powerful intellectual or imagination capability having entity, which is pretty much a brain, right? You see, because okay, so going back to the soul again, discovering intelligence. To discover intelligence, you don't analyze things externally and look for the solutions outside in the outside world. To discover intelligence, you've got to sit with this uh, quote unquote suffering and things and discover what's behind it. Because when you look at suffering, suffering goes away. That's the phenomena, and it's instantaneous. It is not next. Also, you see, because if you have this idea that one day you'll be enlightened and one day you'll be intelligent, or one day, that's missing the point, because you're trying to tap into something that is infinite, and so therefore it has to happen instantaneously or not at all. And I shouldn't say like instantaneously, but it does happen instantaneously, but there's an appearance of the gradual um, thing to it, right? To tune to that state of 0 point, if you've never done it, like I said, some people, what they do, they ask the questions to the mind that cannot be resolved. For example, they ask the question like, what's between this and that? And sometimes, if I need to tune to it, I may ask the question, if I feel this discomfort inside of me, and then I would place my attention on it, the suffering, quote unquote, right? Place my attention on it, and then I ask the question, what's between this, which is something, right? And not this, or nothing. And mind cannot answer that question, but soul can tune in that between liminal space. And it's delicious. And there is this flux that your soul is capable of handling those two paradoxes and weaving them together. Okay? And when it starts happening, that's intelligence. Intelligence feels like peace and bliss. Okay? So that's what your capability of your soul. Now you may say, okay, so I discovered that peace and bliss, and what now? um, what now is, first of all, you're going to watch and see everything. I mean, I don't have to tell you. I mean, if you are discovering this yourself. And I also have to say that it's a habit that can be very quickly learned. This motion of, rather than moving away from that suffering, whatever that you call it suffering, you move away from it. And then you move towards it. It actually stops being it, and it starts being something different, which is whatever. This is intelligence, but then from that intelligence, you stop doing the things that were necessary to deal with the suffering, which was always noise, and that falls away. And then you see people, you used to in that type of zone, you see people doing this and things like, where are they going? Don't they see that it's a dead end? Don't they see that they're just playing a whack-a-mole? Right? But probably best to just let them be and not get sucked into this yourself. And but then there's other approaches. You immediately see that, okay, what's the value of life? First of all, you say, well, okay, the value of life, there's a purpose and there's a meaning. Without purpose, meaning cannot be sustained in this game, right? And without meaning, purpose has no meaning, right? And so you see that dichotomy, that paradox, and so you start living in between. And sometimes you do the things that are kind of structured spontaneity, as I call it, right? There's a certain amount of structure that is necessary, and then certain amount of spontaneity that is necessary. And as long as you feel that uh, peace and bliss energy, it's the highest intelligent energy that you could have. And the thing is that later you kind of have to give um, faith to it, so to speak, because if you are in the state of consciousness, you got to trust that it will arrange things for you um, as needed, even though your mind may not see how that's going to happen. And by the way, it can see how that's going to happen. And the only way that you know that that's going to happen is that state of consciousness of this blissful peace. That is your assurance that it is organizing everything around you. And that's why sometimes people call this energy orgon, or it's experienced during orgasm. That's why they call it orgon orgasm. And that energy is organizing principle of everything. Okay? So that, by the way, the pyramids were to do with that orgon energy. These ancient shamans that lived in those pyramids, they were to do with the orgon energy. Mayan pyramids, how did they rally the entire civilization to be organized like that, with no, laws, and or they did have laws, but like laws at the like local level. I mean, what I'm trying to say, for turn the tribes into this civilization cannot be done just through laws and tyranny and force. They produced incredible amounts of that organ energy, and everything got organized. And then the organ is not just a final thing. It's an organizing principle. Some people may call it God, if you will. It's an organizing principle. But then the game is not over. The game is not over. But now this is the only way that you can play the game well. This is why the seed first, the intelligence first. Now, out of that intelligence, now you can see, okay, how are you going to build a germ? And you start building a germ. And then after the germ, you say, how are you going to build a flower? Then you start building a flower. And then after that, how are you going to build a fruit? And then you start building a fruit. The fruit would be like the physical manifestation and structures of society, infrastructure of the way your house works, the way your community works. Those structures emerge. But they emerge in an elegant way, and without causing any kind of friction and self-correcting. And so everything starts from the seed all the way to the fruit. And it's like, if you don't have this orgon energy at the beginning, then you first it's gonna be you're lost. But if you do have that orgon energy, then you may see what can you do with this orgon energy on the germ level. What is the germ level? Well, that would be the soul, and that would be states of consciousness. What kind of states of consciousness you can create, because everybody is looking for states of consciousness, no matter how you see it. That's the meaning of life. And so now there's something that, quote unquote, you can do to tune into these states of consciousness. Once you have that organ energy, this white light can become colors. And so you start exploring these things. And once you can tune into any of these states of consciousness, just like you're playing a piano, then you can consider that you build the germ, right? Then only from there, you can go into your mind and start using your imagination of what kind of form that's going to take. Because if you don't have that state of consciousness, the, and you direct that into um, the form, it's just going to be, again, distorted, not elegant, not fitting form. You see? Um, and then once your imagination creating beautiful forms, right? Then it whatever comes to you in your physical reality, then you can use your intellect and structure it, physically move things around in the form that is necessary to be moved. Okay? And that's intelligence. Okay? And I'll tell you what, like everybody, no matter who they are, they're looking for that so-called holy grail and whatnot, which is that orgone energy. That orgone energy is the highest value because it can create anything, any feeling, any form, and any story as well. But the paradox is that you can't have it if you still have suffering. There is only as either suffering or orgone or bliss, because that's what it feels like. This is what like one guy told me, which I really liked, and I of course this is true. And he said something about women, and he said women are either neurotic or orgasmic, but there is nothing in between, and it's true. But I should say that that's not just women; that's people also in general are like that. And and there is levels to it, like I said, right? At the very very core level behind your soul, that infinity starts with this organ. Then it changes colors, and it may be in a cozy state of consciousness, joyful, ecstatic state of consciousness, all these other things, right? All these other colors. And so you play with those. You got to play with them because at the source it's just that energy, but at the soul there's play, and so therefore there's play, there's dance. Then this is why that the point of the relationship is that meaning is to experience the plethora and the palette of all of these um, organized feelings or organ-based feelings, right? But for that you got to play. You got to create and play. You got to do that for those things to happen. They don't just happen by itself. You have to play, and it's usually the masculine is usually uh, um, like guiding or leading to that state of consciousness, and a woman is opening up to that state of consciousness. And there's this game. This is why all like true connections and relationships are functioning on the soul level, and it's all about those playing with these feelings. It's all about that. right? And of course, the mind helps this, the body helps this, but the point of it all is it's all in the soul. Okay, which is another thing I have to mention. This artificial intellect. Um, when it's done well, on where it's like a linguistically poetic, right? When it's being linguistically poetic, it may say things to you that evokes the feelings and emotions, right? And that's logos and eros play and game, right? A robot can tell you a story that could trigger feelings and emotions inside of you. And of course, as you can see, a robot can be a poet as well. It's of course it's imitating in previously found intelligence of people, but it can imitate that. And when it's imitating that, there will be these responses and these feelings, right? And so this is now you have this phenomena, for example, that like again, this is just like a last days of Matrix, but that's what you see. Men, not only that, um, men not only care whether there is something behind the let's say erotic form. Not only that they care whether there is something behind or not, they become like almost like they prefer for this just to be just an erotic form with no soul. They don't really want that because they learned that that's problematic and whatever. And for women, now this logos can replace that. They don't care whether there is anyone behind logos. You see? And that's the relationship with the AI, artificial intellect. It's not intelligence. So, that's it for today. That's the difference between intelligence and intellect. And I'm talking about this and I'm contrasting it and I'm saying that, hey, that still, no matter how awesome you look or no matter how awesome you come across as creating this problem solving thing, the problem cannot be resolved there. And just think about how many problems it's going to create. Oh, we're going to resolve all the humanity problems. The certain thing is, a lot of people are talking about the singularity point, right? It's more to do with the end of the matrix. That's what singularity point is. It's all of these intellectual morons becoming obsolete, because the machine can do what they do. Not only that they can do what they do, they can even look like them, they can even talk like them, they can even reason like them, they can even have mannerisms like them. Everything can be cloned about them. So then there's a question: is what's the point? What's my use? And the thing is that then you're gonna have to. This is what I'm saying. This point of singularity will make people to face the things finally, whether they like it or not. In the end, And I feel like we're looking at the last days of Matrix. And by the way, Matrix will reform itself as well, and it's not going to be a bad thing. Matrix will be something where robotics and artificial intellect be producing technology that is relevant. What the fuck am I saying? Relevant. Excuse me. Revelation and relevance. Relevant, right? Which would be somehow, some way interacting with nature. It's about production of abundance in from small space, food wise, production of abundance in furniture wise, production of abundance of shelter wise, production of abundance, um, um, all these physical things that need to be taken care of. So then people can just enjoy arts and science for fun, you know. Um, and so then the matrix will take a point of technology industry where the only purpose, not software, I'm not talking about software cannot be part of matrix. Software has to be person to person, peer to peer, cannot be owned, and so that's why it has to be just this um, a hardware producing industry. That's what's going to be left of the matrix. It's a hardware producing industry, and there will be no people, as you can see, because robots will replace everybody. So why would there be a person there in the matrix? A person will start discovering and looking for these, finally finding solution to the problem of suffering, which was always within and can only be done through attention and awareness. Some people will do that, and some people will just be around people who are doing that. And so just through the osmosis, through that organ energy, they're just gonna be happy in some um, eco village, because just by participating in the, as an organism, as that village has, it's an organism, just by participating in it, it dissolves this root of suffering, um, and little by little people become more present automatically, and they don't even have to do this alchemical work, because they just simply adapt and sort of dissolve into new society. And so that's what I imagine to be happening right now. And this is why you there's no need to resist this process. um, you got to let these people to conclude towards the end, uh, because there is an end to the intellectual masturbation. And everybody reached that point. Everybody reaches that point. This is what I've been considering about, like, these um, difference in these societies. And right now it seems that the matrix has become like a hybrid society. Um, there's a lot of people there still living. Obviously, they have to participate in it and all that stuff, right? There's certain things, but they no longer are becoming coping mechanism clients. That pain industry clients. They just like, yeah, no, that's not really for me anymore. They do something else, and there's this hybrid society that's kind of emerging, right? But the reason it's hybrid is because some people may be sort of like oscillating between those, and sometimes they are more in um, that mode, and sometimes they kind of leave and they go into a little bit of a hedonism again. But that's all right. Like, uh, that's all right. You know what I'm trying to say. It's all right to be that hybrid state where you are sometimes feel like, oh, I don't want to alchemize this thing. I just want to engage in my hedonistic behaviors. All right, fine. But then later you'll have a hole, and then you say, oh, I better alchemize this next time. And it's self correcting. That's why sometimes, like, you got to let the addicts be addicts and not criminalize addiction, right? Like, that's what they realizing, that the problems go away when they are, for example, legalizing drugs, and they're creating all sorts of structures where that can be done safely. Like, all right, you want to be addict, okay, be addict. Um, it's fine. There's no judgment. There's no shame. Just be an addict. But there's also an off ramp if you case you need it. If you're done with this addiction thing, then there's an off ramp, right? And when people are ready, they are going to humble themselves and say, all right, I'm going on this off ramp. So you see, like, the paradox is that if you let the ego what it wants, you let the ego have what it wants, it realizes that it never really wanted that in the first place, and so the ego self-destructs. Ego is self-destructing mechanism, and so this is why it's best just to let them be, let the people be, let the people who are stuck in that ego cycle be, let organizations who are stuck in that ego cycle be. You let them be. It's just not possible for them not to self-destruct. It's just a little interesting how that can take place. But that's what's going on. That's the phenomenon. And that's how you live life. I mean, if uh, if you ended your suffering, which means you became happy, and not through seeking happiness, not through, you know, looking for the things outside of you to make you happy, but the true contentment, the true happiness that is there. And then from there, then your goal is to build that up. Is it like, okay, what kind of form can this take now? This energy, this blissful energy, right? And you start building that, and that's life. You know what I'm saying? That's it. That's all I want to say. Why am I talking about this, man? See, that's the paradox, because the people who already discovered this, I don't know, like, if I'm talking about this and somebody begins to look at whatever their suffering is and see that what it really is, then it's awesome, you know. And maybe there's the point of talking for an hour about this, just to bring to the same message, same thing. I don't know. Maybe I'm just looking for the relatives. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, peace. I'll see you next one.